Just your warning.
I'm back here thinking it's just a couple minutes after it's sent.
Did I leave
I've
a
got
paper?
plenty of time.
No problem, Bob. I put it in there. Oh. Oh, my.
All right, I show 6:30. We want to wait about 5 minutes for Mike and
Yeah,
our other
Sure.
guy, give him a couple minutes to
yep. Mike was in the parking lot.
show up there. Why didn't my 6:30 alarm go off, Lois?
Is it on vibrate?
Look, there's Mike. Yeah.
Good evening.
Hi, Mike.
Hey, how we doing, sir?
Good, about yourself?
Great.
That's just a little, I forgot to give you that with your packet. It was just the email transmitting that.
You didn't get a call from Mr. Miller, did you? Saying that he wouldn't be here.
I didn't, this might be
Okay.
him right now. Perfect.
Well,
Oh,
Hi, Dave.
here he is.
Partway down Elk Lake Road, I became part of the hay hauling parade.
Oh, how fun.
oh, we'll let it slide then, because you know those farmers gotta do.
Yeah. I'm gonna make it
That's right.
when we get off the road with that.
All right, are we all set?
Yes.
Yeah.
All right, it's 6:31. We'll call the June 16th, 2022 meeting of the Whitewater Township Marijuana Subcommittee to order. could we have a roll call, please?
Hall,
Here.
Goss,
Here.
Jacobson,
Here.
Milor,
Here.
Bomuth.
Here.
And then I'm gonna ask everybody to make sure you pull your microphones up nice and loud.
All right.
Thank you.
All right, we have a quorum to do business. All of us are here. Any adjustments or recommendations to set or adjust the meeting agenda for this evening? Okay, so there'll be no changes for the meeting agenda. Does anyone see any declaration of conflict of interest regarding tonight's agenda and the business we have before us? Nope. No conflicts. All right, we have an opportunity for public comment. We'll begin with persons at the Township Hall. No one in Township Hall. Is there anyone on Zoom?
There's someone on Zoom and Linda has her hand up.
Linda, you have the floor, please, for public comment.
Okay, thank you. So I know today you have two things kind of in front of you, talking about interview questions for a marijuana applicant or pre-application questions and flow charts. So a couple comments for you. First of all, as I've had a lot of time to think about marijuana implementation in our township, currently the draft of the zoning ordinance does allow it in the industrial and the ag area. And I think most people don't have significant concerns in the industrial area, but a lot more concerns with the ag area. So I think you just need to be thinking about on your interview questions, you know, the big reason why typically we plan and put industrial operations in industrial parks is to minimize community contact and problems and conflict with running an industrial operation and all the things that come with that, as far as various emissions into the air, as well as wastewater, power consumption, and all that kind of stuff, noise. So I think you need to make sure as you look at your interview questions that you're addressing that and understanding what those impacts would be and how close you are to residential homes. Second of all, I looked at your draft flow chart, and I have to say that it has arrows and things like that, but this is not reflective of a typical flow chart. Will have be a simple block diagram visual, and it'll have a very short item as to what it is and who's responsible for it. So, you know, the whole idea is to be able to look at one sheet of paper and get the concept of the flow very quickly, not to have a lot of detail. So the detail comes in other documents. So I think we're still needing that simplified version. So, and at some point, if somebody wants my help on that, I would be happy to help them with that, because I used to have to do those sort of things in my job. So that's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Linda. Is there anyone else on Zoom that would like an opportunity for public comment? Nobody?
No.
All right. Let the minutes reflect that an opportunity for public comment was offered. Okay, has everyone had a chance to look at the May 19th, 2022 special meeting minutes of the Whitewater Township Marijuana Subcommittee meeting?
Motion to approve the 5/19/2022 special meeting minutes.
I'll second that.
We have a motion by Cheryl and a second by Mike to approve the May 19th, 2022 meeting minutes. Any discussion? Hearing no discussion, we have a motion and a second on the floor. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. No one in opposition. The minutes are approved. Next item on the agenda is interview questions. I know that Cheryl did send the attorney's comments to all of the subcommittee members, and I hope everyone's had a chance to look over and maybe make some notes. I know I have. I didn't know if anyone wanted to begin the discussion. I'll be happy to. I have of course, I also have a question for Cheryl, as you are the township clerk, and as this is marked attorney-client privilege as a confidential written legal opinion.
Mhm.
Should we discuss these items in open session?
Yes, we can discuss them. The legal opinion has been provided to this committee and it will be provided to the rest of the board members eventually. We can discuss them, but we shouldn't quote directly from the legal opinion.
Okay,
But we can discuss the content of it generally.
generally, generally, but not specifically. Well,
Well, I think, I mean, I think the committee's gonna be coming up with questions. I would like to see the committee come up with the set of questions that we're gonna recommend to the board. And so I think we do need to come up with specific questions, and whether they're exactly what's written in the legal opinion or not. You know what I'm saying?
well, I'll try to stay as general as I can with my comments. The attorney makes it clear and states on at least 2 occasions that the township should consider the goal of having such a meeting or pre-application
Mhm.
conference. But at the same time, he also states that even though it's not prohibited, ordinance 59 and 60 don't organize or assign a pre-application committee.
Right.
Uh,
So in other words, we
To that.
can't make it mandatory that an applicant
Yes.
attend.
And again, he also discussed within this memo that the board has the authority to weigh the applications on an individual basis. But again, we have no weighting standards for those applications. I know I've brought my experience to the table, and when I am preparing, when somebody's preparing an application for me for a house or a garage, or whether somebody is preparing a site plan that goes before the planning commission, there are different levels of review. And the more scrutiny it's going to receive, the more complete the application needs to be in
Right.
detail. Even the opt-in ordinances 59 and 60, just the application to get a license from the board requires a site plan.
Mhm.
Now, there aren't quite as many standards in those ordinances as there are the zoning ordinance, so he's already coming with the site plan.
Mhm.
So I'm kind of stuck on what the attorney pointed out. What would the purpose of a pre-application meeting be? Other than, again, he also emphasized, filling out, are you in the qualification process? Do you own land in Whitewater Township already? Are you eligible, or have you been pre-qualified? Those are important questions. But
Yeah.
again, the attorney points out that we should give no weight to that to give the township board, to
Right.
sway the township board's opinion.
Right.
So those are the comments I have. I'm led to, unless, and I'm sure the other members may have some other comments, that in order to come up with an interview process or interview questions, which those ordinances don't permit by a committee,
Right.
that those ordinances would need to be amended to
Mhm.
allow it, first of all.
Yeah.
And then again, if we recommended that to the township board, I would also want to have a good feeling of what the purpose of this pre-application interview would be. What are we trying to get to? So that if we interview 3 or 4 people, we're using the same standards and weighting tool from our perspective.
As I read the opinion, I thought of preliminary site plan reviews that are done for things that you do, preliminary site plan reviews, and that the planning commission does. And where, and I've seen some of those be conducted, in this room. And it's just an informal process. I've not sat in on one, so I can't say exactly what happens. But to me, it sounds like what they're recommending is just an informal process to make sure that what the applicant is proposing would conform to what the township has, what's in the ordinances that the township has. So if, somebody came and they want to do something that we haven't allowed, or they want to do it, they're thinking they want to do it, just kind of fine tuning their application, or giving them an opportunity to talk just informally with the subcommittee briefly. And I'm thinking this would not even take half an hour. And when any one of these pre-application meetings, if we decide that they're valuable, it would just be a very preliminary, what is it you intend to apply for? Where do you intend to apply for it? And then making sure that they understand our process.
Well, thank you for saying what I tried to say and failed to say, because that's exactly the purpose of a pre-application conference from a zoning perspective. I see it more of not I'm going to ask you questions and interview you, but I'm going to have a conversation with you and try to solicit some information and educate you. Do you have land picked out? Where is it at? Nope, that's not going to work. Or, okay, you're in the right zoning district, so let's go to step 2. So
Right.
Do you have
that's how I
checklists
see
that
it.
you already follow? I mean, do you have questions you already
From the
asked?
zoning perspective.
Right, do you have questions you already asked?
No, I go by the basic application and I let the application ask the questions for me.
And are you suggesting that this is something that you do, if you will, a conversation between you and the paperwork, or between you and the applicant?
But between any designated subcommittee that the township board may like to appoint as the pre-application interview or questionnaire, whatever you like to call it. My pre-application conference from a zoning perspective, that's how I see a pre-application interview before the board gets a packet. So a similar approach, what is it you want to do? Where do you want to do it? So we can say yes or no. Yes, it's allowed. No, it isn't. I'm looking
Right.
for all yeses, of course. And if it's no, you need to engage them in that conversation to see if you can get to a yes somehow.
Yeah, exactly.
One thing that stood out for me in that opinion was this idea that as much as the application process has not begun, there isn't any official application available to be filled out and so forth, that this would be the time that if there is going to be some kind of an interviewing process, that should be made public. That should be a notification that comes out along with this process, so that people don't come back and say, you didn't tell us to do that. That's not okay. And that people would object to that we would say, this is what's going to happen. When you file an application, then we want to talk to you relative to that application. One, because these are the goals we have for that interview process. Those should be laid out. And secondly, in some way, I think the township authority needs to say, this is what we hope to accomplish by doing this permitting process, in terms of what the commenter originally said, that idea of where do we want things located, how do we want them to be neighbors with other people that are already here, that sort of stuff. That should be pretty clearly stated.
And I would only disagree from this standpoint. The way I read the opinion, the subcommittee could conduct these pre-application interviews, getting the information from them, just very basic information, not going into any great detail. And that actually that would be a really informal process much like it is for Bob with zoning things, the public's not invited. It's just, it's not that they couldn't hear it if they were here, but it's not a meeting that's noticed. It's just where you're just kind of, oh, sorry about that. It's just kind of to make sure the township and the applicant are on the same page as far as what they can apply for, what they wish to apply for, where they want to apply for it, and then making sure they understand our process. The part of this is the way I understood the opinion, where you would have the public more involved was only under the recreational and for the competitive review process, because that requires a competitive review process where the medical does not. And so what I understood the opinion to say was that those applicants that the township could have, for instance, so say the subcommittee would meet, right? And those applicants would come in front of the subcommittee and each be given, 15 minutes or something to and the public could be here. It would be an open meeting to say what they intend to apply for, or maybe they have already applied by that time, what they intend to apply for, and just very basic, not disclosing anything that can't be disclosed under FOIA and that type of thing. And then that the township board could actually also hold a public hearing on the competitive review, where let's say you've got 10 people that have applied and you're going to give each of them an opportunity, and it's not going to be what do you want to call it? It's not going to be a free-for-all where the public gets to attack any applicant or anything like that. It's just an opportunity for the public to hear who's applying, what are they applying for, where are they applying for it, and what they basically intend to do. Are they going to be a Class C? Are they going to stack, Class A and B licenses? What are they going to do? How many plants? How they're going to, basically how they're going to control odor, just some basic things like that. That's what I understood out of the opinion. But that the subcommittee's pre-application interview process would not be a public thing, just like Bob's preliminary site plan review with, people is not a public discussion.
So might not be the best language for it, but do you see this pre-application interview process as being a kind of a coaching session where we would talk to people about how they would properly prepare their application?
Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Reminding them
Yes.
that they have to have a complete application. No action takes place on their application till it's been deemed to be complete. They got to have all the boxes checked, in other words, and we have those boxes on our application now. And they got to have all the boxes checked, and somebody's going to be looking at that, asking for more information if they don't provide all the information, that type of thing. Just a short thing, just to get to know, put a face with an applicant, and ask, just kind of that basic information.
It also gives the applicant an opportunity to ask questions that they have too,
Oh,
right?
absolutely.
Yes. Yeah,
Yes.
yeah,
Not just us,
right.
not just the subcommittee, but
Yeah,
the applicant,
exactly.
if they have a question, they have the opportunity at that point to ask.
Yeah. If something's unclear in our ordinance or something like that. And, they might ask even about, because there's a licensing part of it, or the permitting part at the township level. Licenses are at the state, but there's the permitting part under the general ordinances, the police power ordinances, and then there's the zoning component of it, and they might have questions about that too, so, they might want to know, I would think most of them would have come in here having already checked out the community, kind of know what kind of community it is and all that type of stuff, but they might have questions about that too.
Who would you,
They're saying they need your microphone closer. Thanks.
oh, okay. Who would you visualize doing this pre-coaching work, this pre-interviewing work with the applicants?
Well, I
potential
think it
applicants?
should be a subcommittee of this committee,
Yep, that's
like
what I was
2
going for.
people, so that you don't have a quorum. Because if you have a quorum of the committee, then you've got to have notice. You've got to follow the Open Meetings Act. So I think, and it could be, and I think what Bob has done in the past, and I've seen other zoning administrators do this too, it might not be the same 2 people all the time. So if Bob needs to have a preliminary site plan review with somebody that he wants some members of the planning commission there, then he can invite up to 3 members of the planning commission, because 4 would be a quorum, right? Then you have to follow OMA. And so I would think it would be 2 members of this committee, and it might just be whoever's available. And you have your kind of a script, at least for the committee's part of it. And so it just be whoever's available, maybe Mike and Dave are available when, or maybe me and Dave are available or something like that, I'm any 2 people is kind of how I see it. I don't think it needs to be a big complicated thing. As long as we're all telling the applicants the same thing.
And they would be invited to take advantage of this service that's basically provided, as opposed to being required to attend and submit to it.
Yeah, the legal opinion makes it clear that because the subcommittee was not created through the ordinance, that we can't make it mandatory. So if an applicant doesn't want to meet with the township, they don't have to.
Right.
And we can't hold that against them.
Yeah.
Because we can't, the eventual decision by the township board can't use anything from the pre-application interview, whether they came or not, or anything else, to decide on approval or denial, is the way I understood it. Do you agree, Bob? Or
Yes, I'm still stuck on, the ordinance, or I should say, the attorney made it clear, in advising to approach this subject with caution.
yeah,
And because these pre-application conferences aren't authorized by either ordinance 59 or 60 to
Right.
proceed with caution,
right.
before, I try to think of,
Could you really do it? Is that what you're getting to, Bob?
what's that?
Are you getting to, should we really do it? Because
Well,
now you're
well,
putting
I'm
words
asking,
approach
Mike.
with-
I
I came up with the same thing. I was like,
I'm asking myself, if we do it, there needs to be an end purpose to it, like the attorney suggested. And how can we use it as a valuable tool for education? And will it do the township board any good? Because the township board, as a legislative body, can give weight to it, and they don't have to have findings of fact or anything. That's the power that's given to them. And not knowing how the township board will treat each application on an individual basis, how can the subcommittee help them in this process? I see it very similar, and I think all of us are on about the same page, as almost identical to what I do in preparing somebody to go to the planning commission.
Mhm.
And I'll be honest, this may sound a little funny, but if you were the applicant, Heidi or Cheryl, I tell you, I said, my theory with the planning commission is we want to treat them like some bobbleheads, but we want their heads always doing this. We don't want them doing this. We don't want them scratching their head. We want to try to think of all the probable scenarios and the questions that they're going to have. And we need to have the answers, for them. That's why you know what? Anything less than a 100% complete application is not going to cut the mustard.
Mhm,
You know, we need it all. We need everything.
mhm.
Anything less than a complete site plan will not go, you know, to the planning commission, even though the
Mhm.
planning commission has some discretion in there, just like the board would have. But I
Mhm.
would never want to give anybody less than they deserve, so the township board can do a, you know, an adequate review and do substantial justice to each applicant,
Mhm.
you know, on a case by case basis.
And I think that, that it can be done without amending the ordinance. They basically say it can be done without amending the ordinance. We just can't make it mandatory. So I think one of our recommendations to the board would be that, you know, the committee recommends that applicants be offered a pre-application interview. But it cannot be required
Mhm.
unless the ordinance was amended to require it. And and I don't really see why the ordinance would need to be amended to require it. If nothing from it can be used in
We're
the
not
board's
making
decision-making
decisions
process,
or anything.
and we're not making decisions, we're simply just offering the applicant an opportunity to tell us to meet someone from the township, although not the people who are going to be deciding on their
yes,
approval or
yeah.
denial, to meet someone from the township, to find out, have them tell us, what do you intend to apply for? How many licenses, under what categories, blah, blah. Where are you thinking of putting this? And do you have any questions about our process? Unless there's something else the committee wants to, you know, ask them about, but I think you got to keep it quite general.
I think it needs to be, just like you said, it needs to be general, it needs to be informative, and it needs to have a goal of us getting somewhere, because even though you know, it's not authorized and we can't give any weighting factors to it, I
Mhm.
do think that we can use it to accompany the application to the township board.
Yeah,
And in that case, I would want to have prepared questions,
Yes.
like you say, so everyone gets treated the same.
exactly.
Unlike my pre-application conferences for zoning, they're all different because each case is different.
Very different, yeah.
There, but it does need to be with the spirit of informing, educating,
Mhm.
explaining the process.
Mhm. Yep.
You know, the only big difference I see is I don't know what the township board is looking for. When I'm talking to an applicant, I know what the planning commission is looking for because it's
Yeah.
spelled out right there in the ordinance. And then I say, oh yeah, don't forget about this discretionary stuff that they're going to pull out of their back pocket because something
Right.
comes up in the middle of the meeting. We have to prepare for the unknown too. When I'm preparing for the board for this, it's all unknown. I don't know what the planning commissions or the board is looking, and maybe it doesn't matter in this case.
Well, because I think what the legal opinion, what I understood the legal opinion to say is that the application process contains all of what's requested in the application process, contains all of the information that the board needs to make a decision.
Yes.
So the board's gonna get that, and really, I don't know if the board, you know, maybe, is the board gonna get what will the board get from the pre-application process? I mean, they can't use any of that
I
to
think if
make a
if
decision.
we can't use it for waiting and they can't use it for this. Got a bug on me here.
Yeah.
If they can't use it for a decision, I think it would just be a matter of informing the board that either an applicant has or has not completed a pre-application.
Right, yeah.
conference. And
And you could, you know, there could be just a little short, they intend to apply for
yeah,
such and such in this area or whatever. And we could even have a statement on there that says, you know, that just a reminder to the board that pre-application interview process is not mandatory.
It seems like the goal of it ultimately would be to make sure that the application, which will be the vehicle through which the decision is made,
Mhm.
is as complete as possible and
Yep.
gives us as much information as we can get ahead of time to know whether or not it's.
Yeah, exactly. And I think you're just giving them an opportunity to ask some questions too. They might have questions that aren't answered by our ordinance. They might be someone who has these types of businesses in other places, and this might be their first one. Or it might be their first one, you know, you don't know. And I don't know what other communities are doing and what their processes are, so. And maybe they don't have any questions. We at least gave them the opportunity
Exactly.
to ask
This
them,
is a place where they have the opportunity to
right,
ask any questions that they have about the whole process.
right,
And we have the opportunity to ask a few questions
right,
to help make sure that their application is ready for them to go to the board with.
yep, exactly. Well,
Okay.
they are gonna file their application with the zoning administrator. That's where it goes first. And then it's gonna, and then what I was rereading in the ordinance is that between the zoning administrator and the attorney's office, it's gonna be, they're going to make a determination when, you know, when the application is complete. Because we don't have to start processing anything until all of the information is available, has been supplied, you know?
What you were just saying leads me to sort of a two-part question. First question would be, on what basis do we agree to, I think that's what it's saying, agree to have a sit down with somebody for a pre-application? Where's their earnest money, so to speak, in this part, in the process?
Mhm.
And two, what kind of time frame do we set up, if any? This is gonna be a 1 hour meeting?
Mhm.
I mean, how long do you commit to somebody who hasn't put any skin in the game at all yet?
Right, yeah. And remember, this is pre-application, so
Yeah.
they haven't paid
That's
anything.
what I mean.
Yeah.
That's what I
Yep.
mean.
So it's just, it's kind of an exploratory meeting for them, really, you know?
In my situation, I give anybody and everybody that wants information from me as much time as they need. You know, I mean, I know exactly where you're heading. If we're to do this in an organized fashion, I definitely see a minimum 30 to 45 minute time frame
Mhm. Yeah,
to engage in a conversation, stay on the path that we need to go down to achieve the objective,
sure.
and have that conversation with them and educate them on how the process in Whitewater Township works.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And can I ask you a question, Bob? Are you
Yes.
done?
Yeah.
Okay. How many of these do you do a week?
How many
You only
of,
work 1 day a week, so how
Right.
many sit down and reviews do you do in a 6-month period?
in a
Is that right?
6-month period here, I only do 2 or 3.
Okay, thank you.
But remember, I do this 40 plus hours a week.
I get it.
in
I'm
multiple
just
communities.
trying to see is, are you gonna
Yeah.
have enough time in your 8 hours a
Yeah.
day that you work 1 day
Yeah.
a week? where you
But
focus?
again, if everyone will remember, and I'm skipping ahead in the agenda, that,
I already said that. I got it
that-
highlighted. in the
that
minutes
on
here.
the flow chart, I'm scratching my name off that top half because I don't think I should be involved in processing the application.
Right.
I should only be involved with the actual zoning portion of it.
Mhm.
And that
Right.
works just like any other time. And as per my contract, that's really the only time, and I'm sure Cheryl will vouch for this, that she ever sees any additional hours being charged, because site plan reviews and special uses
Okay,
require
so-
some more work.
You're not gonna sit down with them for the minimal question and review period either? Is that
If
what
I'm appointed to that subcommittee, but I think it would be best if I were left out of the entire
That's what I was
process at
thinking.
that point.
Okay, thanks.
Just so I can maintain my,
Right,
unbiased.
that's what I was thinking.
Yeah. So do we want to, I don't know where everybody's at with discussing this pre-application interview. But I would like to start developing just a little bit of a framework for an ultimate recommendation for the board. I mean, I think on the applications, just to back up to that a little bit, we had, as far, I want to start developing a recommendation to the board on all of the things that this committee is supposed to do. And so to me, we haven't, we had the applications in the packet last month. Nobody had any more changes. In my opinion, they're done.
Yes.
So we've moved on and we can, we can say ultimately in this, whatever kind of report we're going to give to the board that, here's the changes we've made to we recommend this application, and I'll make sure all the changes that have been made are in red. So they'll know from the original, and then as far as this part, so I'm just asking, is there agreement that we're going to recommend a pre-application interview process to the board? And should we just start getting the outline of that down on paper so that when we get to the point of
Putting it all together, we got
putting it all
something going.
together, we aren't starting from square one?
Yes, absolutely.
I agree with that, but again, here's my thought. I want to go back to page 1.
Okay.
And that was our purpose, to develop the interview process and administrative checklist, period.
Yeah,
I think we've even gone above and beyond that by trying to modify the application and make it
Yeah,
more user
right.
friendly.
exactly.
I think what you said was the right question. Do we want to recommend
Mhm.
that there be a pre-application process? And
Mhm.
I think it needs to be even toned down, a pre-application process for the sole purpose of
Mhm.
sharing information with a potential applicant to make sure that they understand everything about Whitewater Township's ordinance 59 and 60 and what the
Mhm.
process is from A to Z and who's going to be making what decisions in the process.
Mhm. Yeah. I think flow chart got thrown in there somewhere, Bob.
Yes, well, I think
Somewhere
flow chart
that-
comes in with the administrative checklist.
Yeah, right,
So
yeah.
I think we're almost there. I think
Yeah.
that,
Right. Me too.
I try to be a little optimistic. I think that with some work, we can be 99% of where we need to be with something to forward to the board after another meeting.
Yeah, me too.
Great.
Yeah.
We're getting there.
So, so proposed recommendations are, would everybody agree with this? For the board to utilize the applications as revised, or as modified by the committee?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, utilize the applications as modified by the committee, subcommittee. I was just gonna kind of get a list. I don't even think we need to vote on this right now. I think we're
No,
gonna talk
just-
about
we're
this.
just Basically putting together an
again.
outline. I
I'm
mean,
just trying to get something down on paper. Also recommend that, how do we want to word it about this pre-application?
That the pre-application recommend that first there be a pre-application meeting,
That there be a pre-application
not
meeting,
mandatory
Yeah,
per the attorney's
voluntary.
recommendation.
which is
voluntary.
not mandatory.
For the sole purpose of engaging potential applicants in conversation and
Okay, well,
sharing
hold a
information.
little slower, Bob.
What,
For the
what?
sole purpose of engaging,
I didn't even
engaging
try.
potential applicants. I'm sorry.
Engaging the potential applicants in an educational conversation about the process to be used in Whitewater Township regarding their application. I guess I just,
Okay, regarding their application.
Do you want to add marijuana to that? Marijuana application?
marijuana, yes, marijuana applications or specifically ordinance 59 and 60.
Yeah, I like that.
Yes,
Ordinances 59 and 60 application. 59 and or 60
yes, 59 and or 60.
application with a parentheses S after it,
Yes.
because maybe they
Yeah.
have more than one. Okay,
And I think if nobody has any objections, I'll take my other case to the township board. But I think that they should consider omitting the zoning administrator from this pre-application process, conference or whatever.
To whom do you propose the application?
I was just gonna say, who, now, should we contract this out? Is there a company that does it?
I don't know. I just don't want to put a subcommittee in the position of trying to answer zoning questions because that's not their job or responsibility. Of course,
Yeah.
part of the voluntary pre-application could be that, hey, you're going to have to see Bob sooner or later.
Yeah.
Because pre-application conferences, even in the zoning ordinance, are not mandatory, but I highly recommend them.
And also, really, what the subcommittee members that are at one of these pre-application
Mhm.
conferences could do is just say, I'm sorry, we have to defer all zoning questions to our zoning administrator, and
Yeah.
they can just call you during your
Sure.
regular work hours and if they have any zoning questions.
Yeah.
I mean, we can't answer them, so,
Right.
yeah.
You
Okay,
know,
so
you're gonna have
township
such
board
questions
should-
anyway, so.
we're recommending the zoning administrator be left out,
Yes.
be removed from the be,
Or not be included in any, I'm assuming, I don't know whether it would be this subcommittee or another subcommittee that the
Right.
township board
I don't
may
either.
want to
Yeah.
appoint to
Right.
this.
recommend the zoning administrator not be included in pre-application interviews. Okay. So are we recommending 2 members of the subcommittee be the pre-application interview?
I don't know who the board would. be
Any 2?
comfortable
I'm just saying any
with.
2. I don't think it, see, to me, I don't think it would be, unless 2 people want to say they want to be the ones that do it, and maybe that is what we want to do, because so that they get, every
Yeah.
applicant gets
Yeah.
the same
Treatment.
information. You know what I'm
Well, from
saying?
a zoning perspective, I would recommend that it be Mike and you or Heidi, at least as 2 members, because then he has the planning commission perspective when it gets to there, not necessarily
Right.
zoning.
Right.
And then he has a board perspective of what's going to come down. the
And see,
line.
I have a different take
Yeah.
on that. And I tell you why. I have a take on it that it should be Mike and the citizen at large, because the board members are going to make the ultimate decision.
Okay.
And maybe the board members should not be involved in it at that point.
I have no problem with that either.
Let's just see if
It
Mike.
does make sense.
But
Yeah,
how do you
Gives you a
feel? You
pretty
still have to
clear
make some
Right.
decision too sometimes.
You're
Are
just
you
looking
okay
at
with
the
that?
application.
Yeah. They're-
right,
They're
right.
not
Because-
making any
But-
decision.
Because-
Mike, you gotta be comfortable. That's why I'm asking you. I mean, you could be, you could be placed in the same, you're sitting on the PC, you could have the same problem. Are you comfortable with it? That's what you have to think about. I mean, I get I get Cheryl's 100%, because I feel the same way, but you're kind of in the same predicament. Are you comfortable with it?
Well,
Maybe we need to go outside the box and just say, come up with 2 other, that's why I said, can you contract this out? So, because you're kind of in our predicament also. You just said you were, so I need to make sure you're comfortable with it. Take some time. Take some time, Mike.
Well, the board is actually making the decision on the licensing. or
See,
the
that's just
permitting,
the planning
where the
commission.
planning commission isn't.
Well, you
the
are
decision.
making a decision on the zoning part of it, though.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So maybe we need to go outside the box and get another committee.
Pre-application isn't zoning.
what's that?
Your pre-application doesn't address zoning at all.
I do pre-application interviews for the most basic zoning permits where I am also the decision maker. So yes, I'm comfortable with that because that's my job, is to provide them information.
Yeah, yeah. Well, but Mike's not part of the licensing process.
No.
And so another part of the opinion that I took out of it was that before they have said that the two processes could be simultaneous. Okay,
Mhm.
somebody could apply to put their application in for the license or the permit, and they could also put their application in for the zoning.
Yes.
But I thought I read in the opinion that there was more of a recommendation to have the licensing figured out first,
Yep.
so
Yes.
that time is not on both sides. The planning commission's time isn't wasted, the applicant's time isn't wasted with going through a process, not knowing whether the person is going to get a permit from the
Yes.
township. So in the beginning part of it, I think Mike could be involved, because if they don't get through the township board process, they're not coming to the planning commission anyways. And then Mike can't use any of the information from the pre-application interview anyways, because it's going to be very informal and general. He can't use any of that information in a decision-making process at the planning commission.
Where would there be overlap? In terms of, in what you were just saying right there, where would there be overlap between the kind of things that would be discussed pursuant to getting the permit
Mhm.
and the kinds of things that could be discussed pursuant to getting
Zoning.
special use permit or?
I think some of it may not be actual overlap, but just perceived overlap. When you have a planning commission member that's saying, hey, this is what the planning commission looks for. It may not be an actual, conflict, but there's where, the perception definitely comes in.
To me, it sounds like it makes really good sense to have them speak into this pre-application thing, so that people know ahead of time, these are the kind of frameworks that exist within which you're gonna have to
Yeah,
find your place.
yeah. Except we can't force anybody to go through it.
Oh, yeah.
Well, that's
Yeah.
okay. So you
Yeah.
just come up with some questions. If you're smart, you're gonna do it because you have a lot of money riding on your business plan. Usually. Right?
I mean, itself is not much.
Exactly. So you got a lot of money to put up here before, so you got nothing to lose. Why wouldn't you do it? So now we gotta come up with questions, but if you
Well,
don't want to answer.
I
tonight,
guess
take your time.
Has the committee, because where I was, the next thing under this proposed recommendations was gonna be that two members of the subcommittee be the ones who conduct the pre-application interviews. Are we still going in that direction, or I don't want to put that down if we don't all agree on that.
I think that 2 members is adequate because the pre-application conference is 1, it's voluntary, and 2, the subcommittee will have no advisory or other decision-making authority.
Right,
So it's not like there's
exactly.
going to be a 1-to-1 tie vote or anything. It's simply going to be an administrative checklist. We ask this person some voluntary questions, and here are the responses, and we'd like to let the township board know that they completed it. That's
Right.
really all we can say.
Right.
Early on in our conversations, Bob, I remember that you talked a little bit about how when you do interviewing people, the application is the guideline, in the sense you're asking these questions, how are you gonna do this, how are you gonna decide this? And in the opinion, the
Yeah.
lawyer basically says exactly the same things that we had talked about before.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So it doesn't seem to me that there should be any surprises in it. And like Heidi said a minute ago, why would you not take advantage of getting some information from people
Right.
Sure.
before you fill out that form and put your money on it?
Mhm. Yeah.
Right?
Absolutely.
Okay, so I had
Maybe
down.
they need till next meeting to make a decision.
Okay, well, I just want to leave something in here to get
How about
us
just put
rolling on it.
possibility, how about just possibility of 2 subcommittee members sitting in a plan review? You know,
2
it's not
members
really
of
a
the
plan
sub,
review. It's basically a meet and greet.
well, I think what we're talking
Application
about,
meet and greet.
I think what we're talking about is recommend the possibility of 2 members of the subcommittee conducting the pre-application
Pre-application,
interviews.
yeah.
That's what they're actually going to be doing. They're going to be conducting them.
I believe there's a consensus for that. Is there anyone that doesn't agree with that?
I think at our last meeting, we talked about time frame. There was going to be a window during which applications could be submitted rather than making it open-ended, since you have a limited number of application slots.
I'm sorry, what was that again, David?
I'm just thinking about the time frame for doing this whole process. We talked about the idea that there would be a window. Here's when the forms are available. This is when the application time is closed. At the end of that application time, we're not taking more applications.
Yeah, and I didn't have time to follow up. I was going to follow up with Traverse City about that whole thing because they are
They're on it a year. I think
gone,
it
you know,
is.
they've already done the whole medical thing and now they're into the recreational thing. And so this has been a question of mine all along. When you finally decide to start taking applications, is it for a limited period of time? And then or is it a rolling application process? It sounds like for the competitive review for MERTMA, it is a window of time.
Yes.
90,
So it's a-
150.
I don't know what it would be, but I didn't get a chance to check into that. And are you generally aware, Bob, of what other communities are doing about what kind of windows of time? Now, down in Fife Lake, they're not doing a window.
Fife Lake's not doing a window. They didn't limit the licenses. It's
Yeah.
not a special use. It's a permitted use. It's subject to site plan review.
Yeah,
But you do have the $5,000 application fee. Your
Yeah.
application has to be reviewed and deemed complete before they can apply for zoning.
okay, yeah. Reviewed and deemed complete, but
Yes,
not yet,
yes.
not yet decided on.
Yes.
And then they can go
Yes.
apply for zoning.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So,
Well, basically, it's an automatic approval process there. If the application is complete,
oh, I see.
they can apply for zoning. It
Oh.
doesn't go before the township board to say, yes, we're giving.
Oh,
you
because
this
it's
or
by
no, or
right.
not.
That's
Because
right.
it's a permitted use by right.
Right, yeah,
Yes.
yeah. Okay, so, where were we on our next recommendation about this pre-application interview process?
Well, I think that if we've gotten this far, then our goal as a subcommittee, with help of the attorney's comments here, probably ought to try to each developer think of a couple questions,
Questions.
using his questions as a guide as how we could engage the applicant in an informational conversation.
Okay, so are you talking about coming up with questions right now?
No, between now and the next meeting.
Okay,
If somebody has something they'd like to throw out right now, that would be fine, but again, my pre-application conference from a zoning perspective is more of an educational type thing. I have their, sometimes they come in, they don't even have an application. Who are they? Where's your property? What do you want to do? So we can start narrowing down. I get
Just
people
go
to come
who,
in.
what, when, where, how, why.
Yes,
Done.
yeah, exactly.
so is
Yeah.
it fair to say the subcommittee will come up with applicant questions for the next meeting to be asked at the pre-application interviews?
Yeah, I think a good
There
homework
you go.
assignment would just have everybody come up with 2 questions
Yeah,
using what the attorney has in here as guides of what would be appropriate questions versus not what would not be appropriate questions. with the goal, I think, of being as informative towards an applicant as we can be. Yeah, like
Yeah.
Heidi said, who, what, when, where, why. I
Who-
sometimes,
No, it's who, what, when, where.
I
how.
sometimes get the question, I want to start a widget manufacturing company. Can I do it here?
Right.
More often than not, it's like, what can I do in the commercial zoning district? And I have to open the book and say, you see all this stuff here? Yeah.
Pick
Right.
one.
Yeah.
And I do recall that the opinion talked about that the questions have to be limited to the applicant's ability to run a facility or establishment, a marijuana
yes.
facility or establishment. So like, we're not gonna say, where'd you grow up?
Yes.
How many kids you got,
Yeah.
you know,
And you
that
don't-
kind of
Personal.
stuff.
It
And
should
you
be
don't want
No
any
personal.
overlapping questions onto the application portion because all those are not subject to disclosure.
What's that, Bob?
And you don't want any of your
Application
pre-application
questions.
questions to look like anything on the actual application because all the application materials are exempt from disclosure.
That's right. Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Well, I think we were given some suggested
Yes, yeah.
questions and we can probably come up with, you know, I mean, I think we should not even try to come up with more than 10 questions.
Well, that's
and
what
we
I'm
might
saying.
not
If
even
if
have
we all
that.
come up with 2 and then
Right.
we consolidate that to 6
Right.
or 8 or something that
Right,
we think
yeah.
is relevant that will assist the applicant in, you know,
So if we
Yeah.
all do 3, that's 12.
Yeah.
So,
Right. And there were a few questions not to ask. in there, too.
all right. So we're good on that. We're all going to come back with possible interview questions next month.
Right.
If anybody has no more discussion on that, we can move on to the flow chart. I'll be happy to start off with the flow chart. Again, I think as we had a public commenter mention, you know, blocks and arrows are good. This is good too when it's limited. I just think zoning administrator should be stricken from everything on the top half and changed to the designated person or whoever that may be. And the only other comment I have on this is where we put in actual dollar amounts down there below. I would probably change that just to something generic to the fee is established from time to time by resolution of the township board because fees can change. And I mean, this is only a flow chart. It'd be no problem changing it.
So
but
you want to be taken out of up here, right? And we'd already
yes,
talked
the
about that.
application
You learned
processing,
that
we'd
at-
already
At
talked about that.
MTA. So you should be removed.
Just cross out the word zoning administrator on those 2 lines.
Yeah.
Right,
Application is given to the township.
Oh, yeah.
right.
I think as I
And then the
mentioned. yeah.
township's gonna have to decide because who's the township? I mean, the board,
Yes.
you know, isn't going to, I don't think, unless the board is just gonna turn it over to the attorney's office to decide if, you know, when applications are complete. That's gonna get expensive.
Wow,
Yes,
that's
it
gonna be
would.
really expensive, Cheryl.
Well,
Well, no, I'm
it's
not-
probably a
I'm
lawful
not-
use of that
okay,
$5,000 application.
Let me
fee, though.
clarify. I'm not suggesting that that's what be done, what is done. I'm just throwing it out there as something that could be done. I'm not saying it should be done. So, so somebody, the committee should also be thinking about recommending, right? Who,
Or advising, boy, I'm making myself look really bad here, or advising the township board that the township zoning administrator would rather not be responsible for the initial application license process, but that should be handled by somebody else who has the additional time to dedicate to it.
and I think, didn't you say, you went to the MTA conference and they were, someone was mentioning how long it takes actually to go through these.
Oh my gosh, yes, yes. Just,
And what was that length of time
It-
generally?
you know, they were saying the process can stretch out over weeks, actually,
Yeah,
months.
So you're telling me nobody's come up with a contracting company to do all this?
I'm not telling you
There are
that. I
some
don't
out
know
there.
of one, but it sure makes sense.
Yeah.
It's almost like doing audits.
Yeah,
Yeah, I was contacted by
Yeah.
one, actually.
yeah.
I don't remember their name.
I think it's
now.
just like any other consultant. That person would have to come to Whitewater Township and say, I need your application. And then they would have to facilitate in having all that person give them the materials.
Yeah,
To do it. So,
yeah. Okay, so we're gonna think about that.
I mean, other than that, I think the flow chart is very succinct and where it needs to be. And heck, if it's done in Word, I can draw boxes around stuff, but as the commenter mentioned, usually it's a lot more condensed and received application, received money, application deemed complete.
More of a little bit of a
Yeah.
checklist, usually.
And again, I
But
think,
this is about, so the flow chart is about, supposed to be where it goes and
Yes,
then
yeah.
when it,
yeah,
all that kind of thing, but, and I guess as far as the, did we put that in the application that the fee was received? I don't remember.
I
Was that a
think it is.
checkbox in
Hold
there?
on. I think it is, sure, hold on.
what we're called.
Checklist, Permits, growers.
Commercial, medical,
Transportation.
the type of license, the proposed facility.
Non-refundable application fee. Is that what you're looking
Application
for,
date.
Cheryl?
Well,
Permit
did we
number?
have a checkbox for that? That's what
Yeah,
I'm
there's-
looking for. I didn't want to dig back through mine.
Well, it's
Um,
on
I
page
guess
2 of, wait a minute, page 2 of 6F, non-refundable application fee.
Oh,
Okay, yeah.
non-refundable application fee on
So-
the medical, and I'm assuming we have.
I was
one
on rec, sorry. I was on adult use.
Well, it's
I
in
didn't-
medical. I just looked at medical.
Yes, it's
Okay, then
in
it's right
medical
there.
and it's
on
in
page
the,
2, Page 2 of 6.
Yep.
Number F.
Yeah,
non-refundable
it's in both of
application
them.
fee.
So that's
Okay.
checked for the, whether the fee's been paid or not.
box is checked in a
Yeah,
couple places.
right. Okay, so what did you say, Bob, about the fees could change on here?
Oh,
You just
uh,
mentioned,
On his flow chart here, the $500 in the second paragraph of the left-hand column and the $100, that
Right.
just be changed to the applicable fee as may be set from time to time by resolution of the township board, or fee in effect at the time of application, because those can change.
okay, so on the flow chart under site plan approval and special use permit application, a specific fee will be
assessed.
changed to, what did you want to word that? Let's see,
Just leave the number out.
yeah. Provides required information and
Fee
And-
the
at
applicable
time.
fee.
Yeah, the applicable fee.
Yes.
Right,
Yeah.
okay, okay, yeah.
As we are working through this flow chart, it seems to me that this would be a good handout for those pre-application interviews. So,
Yeah,
'cause
I like that.
I think in some places more is said than needs to be said to have it be a smooth outline.
Mhm.
But it
Yeah.
does pretty well say this is what you're gonna have to go through.
that's a
Yes.
great
down to
idea.
the bottom two squares.
Yeah,
like
that's
that.
right. I do too. Um,
One other suggestion along that line, in that box in that lower hand corner, small print there, but partway down, the marijuana subcommittee may request a pre-applicant interview. I think we want to change that language around, may offer.
No, we offer,
propose, or, yeah, but we would offer or propose.
right.
Do you want to say the marijuana subcommittee will offer?
No, how about does offer?
a pre-application.
How about does offer? Or may offer? If you do shall, you gotta do it. If you put may in there,
Well, I think you just say will offer, and then if they decide to take us up on it, they
you
do.
could use
and-
does too, does
Mhm.
offer.
Yeah.
In
But
other words,
we don't want to say request because it's. turning
Before
back
an
the other
applicant
around.
submits
Right.
their
Mhm.
municipal permit, the marijuana subcommittee does offer? No,
I
that's
think
will-
does works.
Does or
Just
will?
Does offer a
Offers.
pre-application. interview.
well, if you're saying does
Just
offer, you're giving
offers.
them the same thing as you can either do it or not.
Which is how it works.
Right.
Yeah.
Cause shall. and
Because it's
may
not
could be a little-
mandatory,
Right.
can't make it
Can just-
mandatory, so.
Can just say
But it-
offers.
Yeah, that's another one.
Yeah, there you
That's a
go,
good one,
offers,
Lois.
right.
Offers.
Yeah, that's great, yeah.
Okay, offers, yeah.
And then the second paragraph really does say pretty clearly what we've been saying this evening about what we're thinking this would be for.
Yeah,
The opinion said we should be very clear about why we're doing this. There should be a reason
Right.
for this.
Mhm.
And it says it.
The attorney did this flow chart, didn't they, Cheryl?
yes.
Okay. Well, it wouldn't take us any time to box this up and change it if the committee wants any changes done to it.
Yeah, I don't have it I don't think I have it in a modifiable form. I'd have to look and see how he sent it to me,
If
but
it's a PDF, it wouldn't take much time to copy paste. It's such
Right,
a
yeah.
small document.
yeah.
Cheryl, I'll look it up if you want.
Okay, that'd be
Yeah.
great.
Any other comments on the flow chart?
So the changes that are going to be made are the zoning administrator will be stricken in the top half. A specific fee amount, instead of stating a specific fee amount, it will be changed to the applicable fee. In the small left-hand box, first paragraph, it will say the marijuana subcommittee offers a pre-application interview. Okay, and then what else? I just don't want to miss anything.
That's all.
Yeah, I think that's the only changes we made.
Then you changed under site plan approval, special use.
What were Linda's comments? That one of them I thought we should talk about. Do you remember what those were, Lois? I don't know if you put that down or not.
She said she thought there was a little more specificity in some of these than needed to be to make it just a simple straight flow chart.
Oh,
Which I think is
yeah,
What we're talking about.
Right.
Taking out some of those
Right.
things that probably aren't necessary at that point.
although from the standpoint of giving it to an applicant and them knowing these timeframes in
That's-
here, I think those should stay in there.
That's good too.
And the necessity to have both permits, municipal permit and zoning approval before operating.
Okay, any further conversation, comments on the flow chart? I think we pretty much got that wrapped up. We are on to other topics the commission wishes to address. And I only have one because this caught me by surprise. And I have to address this to Heidi. It's not often I get time to read the township board reports or the packets because they're so long, but you mentioned something about the planning commission and the marijuana subcommittee. The failures are almost complete. And I was wondering what failures you were referencing on this committee so we could address them. And
Well,
correct if you think something's
we
wrong.
got this, right?
What do you mean
We
we got?
accomplished this, right, Bob?
Is that right?
This is a flow chart. Remember, we came to a meeting with no flow chart. No attorney information got back
Is
to
that a
us.
failure or is that just something we
I don't
can
know,
comment
to
on?
me, it's a failure because
and live with,
we had to get
or-
up and walk out. So to me, we failed. We didn't get anything accomplished.
Okay,
So we got this now.
okay,
We're moving along. That's a
right.
good thing.
okay.
I don't like to waste a lot of people's time. If we're gonna
And
do
I don't
something,
think
do it.
anybody's time was
I'm
wasted.
with you there.
You know, what happened with the opinion from the attorney is that we asked for the opinion the same week that they were going to the MTA annual conference. And Chris actually lost track of it.
Yeah,
And then when I brought it up to him, he's like, oh, I lost track of this. So it's not a failure of this committee,
get it.
Heidi.
I get
It's,
it. It
it's,
happened,
you know,
Cheryl.
things
It's my
happen
opinion.
that delay things a little bit. It's not a problem. And I would definitely challenge the fact that your statement that we didn't get anything done at the last meeting, we completed the applications. And we determined when our next meeting was going to be and what the focus of it was going to be. To me, there's no failure there.
But look what we accomplished. We took a failure and turned it into a positive, didn't we, Cheryl?
I'm not
It-
going.
Remember,
there's
Cheryl,
no.
it's my opinion. and
there's-
I'm entitled to my opinion,
This
Cheryl.
committee is working voluntarily
I can
and I'll-
address my opinion as I
believe-
see fit, Cheryl.
and I get it, and I have a different
Okay.
opinion.
Oh,
And all
that's
I'm
fine.
saying is that the
That's
committee, I
fine,
think, has
Cheryl.
done great work. And everybody's been here. You've even missed a meeting. And we
well.
went on and got things accomplished while you weren't here. So.
Excellent.
are there any other topics committee wishes to address? All right,
Uh,
subcommittee comments, discussion, that we just had comments and discussion on.
Yeah.
So I just want to say, I think we're that close to achieving what the township board asked us to do, and that is present them with an interview process that will probably include what we discussed tonight, having a pre-application subcommittee that will focus on educating potential applicants of the process, and the administrative checklist, which I think we've already incorporated into the application. That's all my comments I have this evening.
I have one comment. Based on what's in the flow chart, what's in the documentation, and other places and so forth. We are or will tell people 90 days after the receipt of your completed application, we're going to give you some kind of a response. If we're saying that we're going to have a window, applications are available, if applications is closed, then what happens when somebody brings one in early on and somebody else brings one in late? How does the 90 days fit in that? Unless we're saying you better get them on the first day because it's a 90-day window, and at the end of 90 days, we're gonna hand them all back to everybody.
Good question.
Actually, it's a 120-day window because that we all review and processing of the application completed within 90 days of receipt of a complete application. But then the township board shall approve or deny the permit within 120 days.
And if the
So there's that
location's
extra
changed,
30.
It goes to 150, correct?
And typically, I envision an application of this complexity. I see it similar to a zoning application. That 90 days kind of rolls. It's very seldom, unless it's a real simple application, do I get everything handed to me on a silver platter the first shot.
Right.
But I can take a glance at it and I can look at it. And if they've given me the money, I'll start working on it. And if I find something missing, I'm still looking at it while I'm waiting to get that information. So
Right.
So
Well,
sometimes
the
it's, you know,
completion doesn't start till the 90 days.
Yeah.
It's within it.
yeah.
But Cheryl, is it still true that if they change the location, it's 150 days?
I think there is a procedure for that in the ordinance.
Any more subcommittee
and-
comments, discussion?
I
ahead,
have
I'm
some,
sorry.
so I guess I'm not clear, and I'm wondering if, and I was gonna ask this earlier, if anybody had any questions for the attorney, going back to the attorney from the opinion,
Yes.
and I think we do need, because for instance, I have a question on this timing thing. How is this supposed to work? Is it supposed to be a rolling application thing for medical, but then it's a set time frame for recreational because of the
yeah.
competitive review?
I saw that too, because like you said, the recreational has the mandatory competitive review. the
Right.
Medical doesn't. But the way I read this, all review and processing of the application
Completed.
completed within 90 days of receipt of a complete application.
Right,
So typically, like I was explaining before, by the time I've received a completed application for the planning commission, I've got 95% of my review already done. I was just waiting on those missing components.
yeah,
So it's not going to take me, so when I check it complete, if I've been waiting on it, it's probably not going to take me 90 days.
yeah,
However, if somebody comes in and goes, and literally I've seen stacks like this, here's my application,
yeah,
it can take you a long time to go through it, but hopefully we've eliminated some of that time
but
in the application, asking them to follow the application and all the
Order.
materials be in order.
but what if you get 3 on the same day?
Mm-hmm.
You
You
know,
mean, what if somebody else gets 3 on it?
that's what I mean.
Right.
You gotta
exactly.
find a company to do this.
So I guess what I'm asking is, should we follow up with the attorney and ask about that process, or is everybody satisfied about how the time, how the applicant, whether there's gonna be, like I say, a window during which people can submit applications? Is there gonna be a window, or is it gonna be a rolling?
Would that require an amendment to the ordinances by the township board to initiate that window for the application?
I
Because
was wondering.
Because
Yeah,
didn't
if
didn't you
it's
already
not
amend them
mentioned.
to limit the number of licenses or just the number of
We
licenses?
didn't amend the applications. We passed a resolution that reduced drastically the number of licenses that
Okay.
are available.
And isn't that number like 50 or something like that? And I'm
Resolution.
potentially
Oh, yeah.
still trying to imagine, you know,
I've actually
It's
got
50,
that
50,
in here.
55. It is, it's 50, isn't it?
No,
It's
no, that's not-
150 and 5, isn't it, Michael?
I'm
No,
not sure.
no, that was the original ordinance, but you can't go by the ordinance. You have to go by the resolution.
amending the ordinance.
That amended the ordinance, and I have that in my book here.
I thought it
Um,
was 50, 50 and 5.
It was
Maybe it's
until we
150.
amended it. Okay, so here it is, resolution number 2115. I think I gave everybody copies of this, but.
That's what I was looking through my book for.
2115, and this was passed on September 14th of 2021.
How could I miss
Okay.
that?
I'll be happy to give everybody a
Okay.
copy if they need it. And so we changed the medical. Class A is 15 maximum. Class B is 15 maximum. Class C, which is, I think, only 100 plants, is a maximum of 20. And then for processor permits, a maximum of 5. 0 on everything else. And then under the recreational, Class A, maximum of 20. Class B, maximum of 20. Class C, maximum of 20.
Hmm.
And processor, maximum of 5, with everything else at 0.
Okay.
So do you guys all need a copy of this resolution, or? I'm happy to make
I don't
everybody,
need
I can
one
make you a
now.
copy and have it
If-
before you leave if you want.
If you gave it to me, it's probably in the
I'll
book.
take one because I don't know what the heck I did with it. I saw that those showed.
You put them in here, I don't need.
Okay. I'll make a couple copies after we're done here. figure that out. So I guess what I still want to know is if there's any questions going back to the attorney from the opinion.
I would like to ponder the question based on his opinion where he mentioned that the adult use recreational has that mandatory no, why can't I find it? Oh, the competitive review process.
Yeah,
That would. who
it's
does
in
that?
there.
What,
Yeah, who's gonna do that?
you know,
Yeah, I looked it up because the opinion refers to it.
yes.
And I did look up that competitive review process.
Is it in the ordinance then?
Yes, it's in
Okay.
the recreational ordinance on page 12.
And that's done by the township board then?
Well, I'm reading this here. Okay, it says if more complete applications are submitted for an establishment than available permits under this ordinance, the township will decide among competing applications by a competitive review process intended to select applicants who are best suited to operate in compliance with MRTMA and this ordinance within the township. Factors considered in the competitive review process include, but are not limited to, and then it's got 3 categories. It's
Okay.
got a page and a half of
So it
things.
pretty much leaves it open to the township board to follow that plus anything.
And I
else that they
think
want
that
to.
would be part of their decision-making
Yes.
process is
Yeah.
kind of how I envision that. So is that a question going
Well,
back to the
I
attorney?
would like confirmation on that because if we don't have to make a recommendation to the township board and the township board already has their directions written into the ordinance.
We
that was-
don't have to, we aren't making any recommendations, the subcommittee.
No, but I mean, for the application process or based upon, the interview process.
That pre-application,
Well, when the board gave us directions, they didn't say pre-application interview process. They just
Oh,
said interview process.
right?
So that sounds like in the ordinance that would be totally the township board's.
Are you
responsibility for the competing
are you
applications.
distinguishing a pre-application interview process from an interview process?
Well, I'm from the process that the board is going to use to determine the issuance of licenses with competing applications under the adult use marijuana. I would assume that they would just follow the ordinance as it's written. You said
Yeah.
there were 3 standards in there.
Well, there's 3
that included,
categories.
but not limited to, so.
Yeah,
and that's pretty
compliance
typical.
factors, community factors,
Mm-hmm.
which they have to give all of this information in the applications.
Yes,
And
okay.
then there's business factors.
Mhm.
So I don't, in the way I see this, I've never been through this before. The way I see this is the board is making their decision based solely on the applications.
Until you get more than one.
Although like the opinion said, the opinion did say that that the board could have a public meeting at which the competing applicants could be given 15 or 20 minutes each to say, here's what we're gonna do. But then, to me, it's not where the public gets to question
Yeah.
the applicants or anything like that, because they
So-
have
so I don't-
supplied everything they need to
So it's not a
supply.
concern of this committee, I think, at that point for competing applications.
Because it's gonna be at board level at
Okay.
that point.
Right.
Right, yeah, exactly.
I'm good with that then.
So we don't have any questions going back to the attorney?
Unless
I'm fine with
we
that.
want to clarify the timing and review, just to make sure that
It's not rolling or it's complete. We're using completed, not rolling.
and whether the,
Rolling versus set time frame.
yes. Rolling versus set
Timing.
time frame. Yeah,
Okay, timing of applications. Rolling versus set time frame.
yeah. As it may apply to a definite window of opportunity to submit
Yeah.
the application.
Okay. I'll send that question back to him.
Got all that down?
I did.
All right. One more last call for subcommittee comments and discussion.
Don't forget your questions.
Oh, yeah, don't forget your questions that you're coming with at the next meeting that we have not established yet.
I gotta get my calendar.
Okay.
Is it the third week we decided we were gonna meet?
Typically,
Well, I wonder.
July.
The third and fourth weeks are kind of bad for me in July, but I can make it work. I can make it work any week, any Thursday in July.
You guys want to do the 21st? That's third.
21st of July
That's the third.
with everybody again, still.
6:30 again.
It works for me.
Well, we
Six.
were meeting at 6. We changed only this one to 6:30. So what does everybody want to do? I can do 6:30.
I'm good with either time.
Either time works for me. It doesn't matter.
6:30
What
then,
about you, Dave?
July 21st.
July 21st
2022?
at 6:30?
At 6:30. Now last call for subcommittee comments and discussion.
Do you have
Round
anything in
table.
particular to be on the agenda that I list on the minutes?
What's that?
So do you have anything in particular for the agenda that I would list on the minutes?
Oh,
The questions.
just the questions that we're all going to come back with. Yeah. Or,
Yeah, approve tonight's minutes, interview questions, flow chart,
yeah.
Okay.
basically the same agenda. Yeah, we've had. Right.
And now an opportunity for public comment. We'll start with Township Hall first. Any public comment? Go with that? None? And is there anybody on Zoom, Lois, that wishes to make a public comment?
Yes. Yeah, we have a hand up.
All right,
Linda.
Linda.
There. Yeah, I just have one comment. When you were going through your flow chart, and I think you would understand that you need to put simple blocks or triangles for decisions, and then you need to note who's responsible for that item and a very short description of what it is. The thing that was still confusing to me is whether or not these activities with the police power ordinance 59 and 60 and the zoning approval, whether you execute these different sets of tasks concurrently or sequentially in order. So I think you need to clarify that on it. It wasn't clear to me. And even, for example, under zoning approval, it's kind of implied with the two columns where you have site plan approval and special use permit application. Again, whether those are done, it should be clarified, and you do that by the way in which you draw the diagram, whether that's happening concurrently or in order, like first the site plan review, then the special use permit, or do you process them at the same time? So I would just say you should clarify that, and you can do that with some footnotes in addition to making sure that it's properly represented visually. And there are some tutorials online for that.
Thank you, Linda.
So,
Any other comments on Zoom, Lois?
No.
oh, and if we can have Dave get a lapel mic next time, please. It was almost impossible to hear him the whole time.
There you go.
Okay, public comment is complete. That brings us to the end of our agenda where we have to decide whether we wish to adjourn or not this evening.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
We have a motion and a second by Cheryl and Mike to adjourn. Any discussion? Hearing no discussion, all those in favor to adjourn, please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed, can feel free to say the same sign. Hearing no opposition, we'll adjourn tonight's meeting at 8:02 PM if that's okay with everyone.
Thank you, Bob. Nice
Thank
meeting you.
you. Oh.